Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this very special edition of our morning session here at Namaste, Lake Chapala. I'm very excited to be with you. I hope you're excited as well. We've got a lot of people here and a lot of people sharing this. And the reason is because there's something that's been on my mind, in my heart, that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I wanted to share it with all of you. I was actually telling this story to my friend Sue yesterday, and I thought, I need to share this in the morning session because I think it illustrates what we've been talking about all week, and that's grace. This bouquet, this fragrance that drifts in from heaven, reminding us of who we really are and where we belong. And if we follow that fragrance, if we let it lead us back to the home that we never really left, we find ourselves in that holy heavenly kingdom, our home, where we belong. And we all know this to be true. We can feel this. And we talked earlier about how a dream flower has no real scent. But when we do sense that true fragrance that guides us and leads us, we follow. And that's what we've been doing all week. And so yesterday, I found myself remembering a couple of stories that a friend of mine told me. I'll begin by saying there's a book that I wrote a number of years ago. It probably is the best title of any book I ever wrote. It's called Love, God, and the Art of French Cooking. I don't know if any of you read it. It wasn't my best-selling book, but it was a wonderful book. And it was all about my good friend Roger Dufault, who is this amazing chef. He and his wife Kathleen own a beautiful B&B an hour and a half outside of Toronto in a town called Elora. I love going there. It's one of my favorite places, primarily because when you go on retreat there, Roger cooks for you. And Roger is a first-class French chef, amazing chef. And I remember one day I was sitting there with him and he started telling me these stories, and this ultimately became that book. But two of the stories that I remember were about a friend of his who is a very famous chef in Paris. His friend Elaine Detrenu owns a couple of very, very well-known restaurants in Paris. And apparently, if I have this story right, there was another friend of Roger and Kathleen's who lived there in the area, in the Elora area, and very, very well-off man. And he wanted to have a banquet as a fundraiser for some cause, and people were invited. The cost was $10,000 per plate if you wanted to be part of this dinner. And so this man hired Elaine Detrenu, this famous French chef, to fly with two of his other chefs to Toronto to cook this dinner and to host this event. And the interesting thing is, Elaine said to this man, he said, "You, of course, have to pay my chefs, but I personally don't want any money. But let me tell you what I do want. What I really want is to be able to taste the wine that you serve, to taste the wine." Because Elaine knew that this man had perhaps the greatest wine cellar in all of North America. He had wine that even Elaine in his restaurant, with an enormous wine cellar, also a very famous wine cellar, there's no way he was ever going to have an opportunity to taste some of this again. And this was the only thing that was important to him, not money, not more goods, but to be able to savor something that he would never have the chance to taste again. I remember when I was talking to my friend Sue yesterday, I said to her, I think this is what sparked the memory. I said, if someone gave you a $300 glass of wine, are you just going to gulp that down or drink it fast? Of course not. If you have a wine that is that amazing, you're going to smell it. You're going to look at the color and see how it clings to the glass. You're going to sip it so slow so that you can savor every bit. And the same is true with this experience that we're calling forth within us. We're going to savor this experience. We're going to go slow with this experience. I know for me here in my anchor hold, every day I'm praying, make this go slow. Make this year that I'm here in this anchor hold go slow for me, because this is like savoring this fine glass of wine every day, spent praising and adoring and loving and also radiating. So I loved that story of how Elan was not interested in money. He just wanted to sip the wine. In fact, there was one more story that I remembered, and that was when, of course, the reason why Roger knew all of this is because, being French, this man hosting the event was going to put Elan and his chefs at their B&B, Drew House, figuring that, Roger is there, they'll feel right at home. And so late at night, they would all get together and they would drink wine and talk. And one night, Roger asked Elan a question. Being this famous French chef who can cook anything, he asked him, if you only had one meal left, you could have anything, you could cook anything, what would your last meal be? And Elan gave a very surprising answer. He said fried eggs, but not just ordinary fried eggs. In fact, I'm going to leave the rest of this story for a moment, because I think it's best told by someone else. And that's my friend Roger, because my friend Roger and his wife Kathleen are here. Are you guys here? Roger, can you hear me and mute yourself? There they are. Okay, I can see you.
Hello.
Hello, Roger and Kathleen. It is so good to see you here. And I should say, we got them here by the skin of our teeth. We just finally made contact 25 minutes ago or so.
That's right, yes.
And I'm sure
We're doing fried eggs, Jimmy.
Are you
We're doing fried eggs for the
Serving.
guests.
Well, Roger and Kathleen, you both are hearing this story, and I stopped right at that point when you asked him, and he said, "But finish this story for us, Roger. Why did this famous chef want fried eggs?"
All right, and you have to go back to memory there, and what really warmed your heart, and the memory sometimes, as you say, they're very surprising. Because the fried eggs was, of course, done by his mother at the farm. And she will say, of course, they will be from the chicken that run free. And the oil will be probably geese or fat from duck or geese, And what they will do when they fry the eggs, they will do a little bit more fat than necessary, and they will not throw them over. They will just take some fat and cover up the yolk, bit by bit. So the eggs will keep cooking. And after, of course, you lift up the egg, she will have local potato from the garden, a little pepper, the nice bread from the local bakery just around the corner. And this was really something that he treasured and his memory. Forget about the fancy food, he bring a tear in my eyes, because at the time, I was really, really humbled myself by the answer of this amazing chef. And it goes back to what is important to you, not really the food itself, the memory of the food and what it leaves in you. And of course, it's about love. At the end of the day, it's all about love. It's about the loving care of his mother.
Yeah.
There you are.
I just love that story. And, bringing it back to the subject of grace, love and grace, and connecting with those two together. This is what we share. This is the experience this famous chef who doesn't want to make some famous dish. In fact, I should say at this point that when I was writing that book, I thought I had finished it, and yet I felt like, no, this isn't the end. I don't have my ending yet. And so I had this idea, since Roger loves Elan and respects him so much, maybe I should go visit Elan in Paris. So I called up Roger and I said, what do you think of this? Do you think that he would see me? He said, I think it's a great idea, but there's one thing is I should come because he doesn't speak very good English and we should do this together. So Roger and I flew to Paris for lunch.
Yeah.
We were in Paris for one day, and it was just to have lunch at Elan's restaurant. And I'm telling you, it was the best lunch of my life. They just kept bringing food and more food. And I think this lunch probably would have cost at least €200 a piece. And we didn't even have to pay for it. We were his guests.
He didn't want to charge.
Yeah, and you think of that, being in this beautiful French restaurant in Paris, but sometimes I think, okay, well, what would I want? What would one of my favorite meals be? Let me tell you, one of them would be fried eggs fried by Vicky. So Vicky, come on real quick. I don't think you've met Roger and Kathleen, Vicky. We've got to get you guys all together one of these days. But Vicky,
not yet.
Tell us about your fried eggs, because that would be one of the top things on my list is having Vicky make me some eggs. And anyone who's ever had Vicky's eggs or Vicky's breakfast know what I mean. Go ahead, Vicky.
Yeah, Big Louie eggs. Thank you, Jimmy and Roger. I'm so excited to meet you both. And it's because the hearth of the home is always the kitchen, and it's breakfast. So I'm Lebanese, and my father and grandparents and everyone, we grew up eating. We call them Syrian eggs. My father was Louis. We call them Big Louie eggs, and we fry them in deep olive oil, and we spoon the oil over, and we wait until the oil is smoking before you drop the eggs, so you get that crispiness all around it, and salt and pepper it. And Syrian eggs, we serve them still. And when Jimmy asked what would be your favorite meal, Teddy's with me now, and I said eggs, Syrian eggs.
And then you said eggs.
So
eggs don't even touch the pan. There's so much oil.
No, they float, but it's what has sustained our home as a center of love, I think, all these years. Because no matter what, we've got a flat of 6 eggs in the kitchen. Nobody's there and no food. You always have Syrian eggs, and it's also wonderful with the big pita bread, Syrian bread. Thanks, Jimmy. Thank you, Roger. So nice to meet you both.
As I'm hearing Vicky say this, talking about the eggs, and it's true. I mean, this would be one of my favorite things. Of course, I can think of the lasagna my mother used to make and things like this, but all of these things are what connect us to grace, to the grace that we all have within us, that fragrance that guides us home. But it also connects us with fire. When we are feeling this energy, we're on fire. We just want to share it. And I'm looking here, there's a little poster that I created a little while ago that Joy got printed up. It's got my favorite quote from I think the Gospel of Mark. I have come to set the world on fire, and how I wish it was already burning. That really resonates with me. And as Vicky's telling that story, I remember that that Big Louie literally did set the house on fire. You want to tell them about that, Vicky?
That's right. So some kid was delivering some food to the house, and Louis says to the kid, "Here, I'll make you eggs quick. Don't go." And the kid said, "No, I gotta go." Louis says, "Nah, I'm gonna make you the eggs." So he goes to the stove, fries up the eggs, runs out of the house with the eggs thrown in a big piece of fresh hot Syrian bread, and brings the eggs to the kid who's in the truck, ready to leave. And Louis says, "You can't leave without breakfast. You got to have the eggs." And Louis turns around, he walks into the kitchen, and he said, I heard, twinkle, twinkle, little star. He left the pan on, the fire on the pan, and boom, the kitchen went up, and no one was hurt, and we needed a new roof. And it turned out to be a $500,000 repair that the house needed. So he said, son of a bitch, he said, Mary, one of those mysteries. That's Mary.
I love these stories.
Yep.
I love these
Yeah,
stories. It's funny that we could make a whole session about eggs, about fried eggs, but I'm sure we all have that one meal that would bring us back to that sense of grace within us and remind us of home. You see, that's the story that is really the theme of this story is home. When Elan, this famous chef, just wants to have his mother cook him eggs because it creates that feeling of belonging, of home, or with Vicky or anything else that we think of, my mother's lasagna. It's because it reignites that fire within us that reminds us that we are home. We've always been home. We've never left our home. So Roger and Kathleen, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like to add to that? Because I'm just so happy to have you on the call. I don't want to let you go yet.
Yeah, come and visit sometime.
After a year, you can come and visit.
Oh, I will, because I've done many retreats there. The reason I met these guys is because it was right after 9/11. Now that I think about it, like
Right.
a week after 9/11, our friend Neil Donald Walsh was doing an event there that you guys sponsored and invited me to come as well. And in fact, where was I on 9/11? At Vicky's house. I was at Vicky. I was supposed to be in New York that day, but I had a choice because I was leaving to go to Italy a few days later. I thought, should I stay in New York or go see Vicky? I'm going to go see Vicky. And that's the only reason I wasn't in New York. But then I rented a car and went to Elora so I could be part of that event. But there's that, that's a whole nother level of fire, thinking of something like that. But and as Vicky said, the fire there at their house, something was needed. Something needed to happen anyway. Something needs to happen today. And we find ourselves in the midst of a new kind of fire, this pandemic, which is challenging so many people. But look at how it's bringing us together as well. So many people all over the world. I mean, there are going to be hundreds of people who get to hear this story. So we just can't judge. We just have to just keep that longing for home close to our heart, whether it be the memory of fried eggs or lasagna or anything else, and just let it lead us. Let it lead us.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you, guys. We're going to open it up now to the rest of the Zoom community and see if there's anyone here. In fact, let me just ask you a question. 2 or 3 people, real briefly, what would your last meal be? If there was only one thing that would bring you to that feeling, that sense of being home, tell me what that would be. Who wants to share? Yes, Baraka, go right ahead.
Well, first of all, I'll let you guess what I had for breakfast this morning.
Of course, fried egg.
Right, Syrian fried eggs, Big Louis fried eggs. Okay. I learned that Vicky taught me how to make those. Yes. And I can't think of anything better than that for my last meal or my ultimate meal. Something simple that I could just savor. Yes. Not only the eating of, but also the creating. I love making the eggs. It's so much fun, and making sure that the oil's the right temperature. I put lots of ground pepper on top of it after the eggs are in the oil, and anyway.
Because it reminds you of Vicky, right? Because you like me spent all those days, nights, and years in Vicky's having her fried eggs.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there was always Big Louie eggs, always.
Every morning.
If I made just one more little short story, you and I went to Vicky's on the tour with the bus, and I stayed there. And while I was there, Big Louie insisted that he teach me how to make the baklava. Insisted. So I helped him make it. I had no idea the privilege that I was being offered. But he said that once, if you're not with Jimmy, you need to have a way to make money. And this is the way to make money. I need to teach you how to make this. So we made the baklava, and it turns out that, Vicky, if you can back me up, he's never done that with anyone else that I know of. No. Okay. And then he gave me one of his baklava pans.
Wow.
To make sure that I had the. Well, I have since returned that to Vicky, because that's really where it lives, right there. But yeah, so baklava and fried eggs for the final meal. There we go.
Once again, if anyone knows Vicky, that's the other thing that she's famous for. She doesn't go anywhere without bringing the gift of baklava.
It is indeed. It is actually legal tender in the state of Massachusetts.
And by the way, Baraka, for dessert, I would have Aunt Jeff cookies. These amazing cookies.
Here's a story for another day.
Yes. I would love to hear what Christina's last meal would be. Christina, what is it that would bring you back to that sense of home for you for that last meal?
I've been enjoying listening to everybody's last meal love. And, it's funny because when you say what brings you back to the sense of home, I think of, we're talking about within, but it also goes back to food is such a comfort. And my mom hated cooking. She burned everything, cooked everything. So I don't really have that memory of that comfort food of home. But, and maybe that's what helped me to just kind of not ever have food control me. So many people have an issue with food. But as I was listening, what kept coming through me was truth. I have need that ye know not of. For me, truth is the most sweetest, delicious, savoring essence of home. And, yes, there's food that I enjoy, but there's nothing that I enjoy more than truth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. Great answer. It brings us right back to the truth, the real food, the nectar, the manna from heaven. Yeah. That's our nourishing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Christina.
I also just love how, the truth of what really touches us in life is the simplicity. And that's what I see in fried eggs, right? It's like we think, especially growing up in the States, we need all these things and we want the decadence and, the finer things of life. And maybe we come to experience them or not. But if we do, we come to find it's really just the simplicity, the simplicity of a beauty of a flower, the simplicity of a fried egg.
That's right.
And in the end, that's the sweetest nectar of the human experience.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of Elan's story. This famous chef who can have anything, literally the finest gourmet food in the world. I remember when we were there was he took Roger and I into the kitchen, and there was a poster there that it was a painting, I think, and it showed all the great French Parisian chefs, and all kind of together. And of course, Elan was there. So he could literally have anything, but what is it that he longs for? What connects him to heart and home? Fried eggs from his mother. You know, and we take that now into the Divine Mother, or into that longing for the divine, to that nurturing mother that holds us and caresses us and just whispers into our ear, "You are loved. You are so loved." That's the simplicity. And I think, you know, as we've heard for a number of us, fried eggs. Who would have thought that it'd be fried eggs that would connect us with that? Thank you, Christina. So before I let Roger go, I just want to see if there's anything else you would like to share with us, brother.
Well,
Kathleen.
those stories are beautiful. And yes, what I have to share is the love that you feel, whatever brings you love. And those memories are incredibly strong. I mean, from your mother love, how can it be stronger than death? Whatever she does for you, it's imprinted forever. And you're right to have the metaphor of God or our home where we belong, because it's exactly the same feeling. It's exactly the same fire, as you call it, inside of us, or grace.
Mm-hmm. That's grace. Well, I tell you what, when we're through with this pandemic, and when I'm through with my anchor hold year, we're going to have a retreat at Drew House. Maybe we'll start planning it now, so you guys can all come in and enjoy this beautiful place, this amazing little town, and of course the company of Roger and Kathleen, and the amazing food of Roger. So you guys can pay attention and wait for that, and we'll get that on the books.
Much love to all of you. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Let's go to Namaste real quick before we go, and see if there's anyone there that would like to share anything. Where are you guys? If you would, okay, why don't you go ahead and unmute Susan, and I'll put you guys up here. So Roger and Kathleen, this is our little community here in Mexico. We're a little bit light because a lot of people have gone back to the US or Canada or other places, but still a lot of us are here just holding the energy. Any of you guys want to share? Come on up, A. You're leaving today, aren't you, A?
I am. I'm going to visit my mother.
Oh, wow.
It's her birthday this week. So I have my last meal that I would, or my favorite meal, or my most heartfelt meal, is also eggs. My father, who was a pretty good cook, but he didn't often cook. Usually my mother cooked, but sometimes he would show up in the kitchen around dinner time, and he'd open up this bottom drawer, and it had all our bread in it. And he'd pick out all the old bits and pieces of the heels and everything, and he'd chop it all up and throw it in a frying pan, a big cast iron frying pan, and throw it in with some butter and some oil and toast it up. And then he'd crack these eggs on top, and then he'd mix it all up. And you could throw in anything else, but usually it was just that, and salt and pepper, and we would make a meal out of it. And there were many of us kids. My parents had 10 children, and
Wow.
It would feed us all, you know, and it was all just basically bread ends and eggs, and we loved it. And I still make it to this day sometimes, like bread and eggs. So
all of these egg dishes that connect us with home.